Okay. This is a kind of test. 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 Alright. This is a kind of test. I'm on the wrong side. And the light's over there. But webcam is more or less hanging from an aperture because there's no furniture at this point. Markers. Not quite sure which ones. Just a test. I'm probably gonna end up switching. Let me see. Did I just figure out how to do it? I'm retarded. I'm not supposed to use that word, and I don't mean that insultingly. I kept going in circles trying to figure out how to do it, and I just had to turn this way. Let me rotate my ground floor desk. What the f... It took me... I set this up like half an hour ago. Alright, why don't I just... Alright, I'm just doing something basic. Guess the whole board's in view. Let's see, so I just want to draw out a concept. We have these consciousness peaks. And they're not really peaks in the sense of, well, maybe you could say, if you have the, this is a terrible, but the, what's it called, when it's super drawn in, it's like the vocalization. I can't remember what that's called. It's a little early. The waveform for vocalization, visual mapping. And so when you have these peaks, if they get hot, too hot, they'll I just must have woken up. What is it when the peaks hit the top and oh my gosh. The light goes red on your sensors, your input. Sorry, I'm not looking at the... I'll get a thing to erase it. Oh my gosh. Anyway, you get that effect. So, it's as if we have to, we're seeing events happen, and then it's like almost like a map, say so a geographical map of the world, and you have, just little areas where these events happen. Let's draw the other way now. Then we have literally something like a mirror image, basically, but one's the brain, and literally the brains of humanity, and one is the geophysical world mapped out. And so where you have an event or something at a time, you have neurons and groups of brain regions in the population that are kind of pinging off in response to those events. And so within the world itself contains the max potential of both. But where we move at a kind of trajectory that doesn't seek to pretty much continuously elevate our consciousness. Wow. Really early. We end up with something, there is no real measurement or quota system, say quotient, and but we end up with an overage, or really an underage, of what we're supposed to be processing informationally, and a kind of resistance or resilience to when this system mixes itself up and changes and does all this weird stuff that we never knew, it looks like a cookie, but then all the little chocolate pieces rotate and spin around each other and do different stuff, and you're like, how did that happen? Where that happens, normally the neurons have a natural ability to rearrange themselves and speak, hopefully not in hexagonal format, because that's machine oriented. But in that sense, it just maps out to bigger and bigger changes, and you get the scalar reflectivity. It's almost so the potential for the change. It's basically potential change, kind of like potential force or energy, is mapped out for what then more or less advances people to the next level of self-awareness. If we're avoiding what we don't want, we kind of learn more. Point is, this dynamic was falsified so that people could not participate in that. They basically avoid that. It's a loophole. I spoke about this. I recorded it. I haven't published it. Don't really have too much of an area, but and as a result, where we should be here, it's as if we're here or here or something, or even down there, and then the people whose brains, basically everyone who's not a part of this game of that, you know, this secret process that people consider to be something more important because they can get what they want out of certain things, and for whatever reason, kind of however it's done, it's pushed onto others. But I don't know, regardless of whether it's said that there's a right way to do it and that these people are already going to be, you know, installed with fear and instilled in this, that, and the other, and then by syncing it up kind of one-to-one, you're doing twice as much work and humanity accelerates that much faster. I don't know, I'm not the one saying that, I'm just saying that the system is used basically in that format for others with the power to do that, and it's like an exploit so that they don't have to do, you would like to say, the same work, but I already know it's not a debate, because somebody will say, well, they go through much more darkness and much more self-awareness, so they're actually the leaders of the self-awareness wave of humanity, but then in the same sense they're holding everyone else down, so how does that make themselves truly better if it just makes them look better and so on? But I'm not getting into that. The idea is it's got to be solved, or it's going to bog us all down and we're going to go back into the bottom of that thing, and or something's going to happen. And however, apparently that can't happen anymore. That was what it was all about. That's happened so many times that we get up to here, and it's like, okay, and they're like, okay, but to get past here, you got to do all our work and work off all our karmic, you know, workload and loopholes, which is basically like allowing them to drain our soul energy. That's what all that would be. You know, if somebody has life homework or something, and they don't want to go through that, and so they basically covertly hire people to interact with the world or in the world in the ways that they would had they be gone onto the right path, and then they literally, through some technology or some covert thing or whatever it is, trade soul energy, maybe even by like identity splicing or something, and then they resume, you know, whoever was doing that exploit resumes basically something like this, where it's like pleasure, ecstasy, we'll see, or excommunication. This is gonna fall over soon, I bet. Just warning. It's dirty, but yeah. And then so it's literally like that, where I hate to draw the, you know, it's literally the people, and they're working in this area, or at least the people here never even know. It's as if they're kept in the dark. That they have no idea what's going on in these little shindigs. I mean, to tell them, to map it out like you see the researchers doing today. Okay, they're breaking down every possible facet of information and when that is exposed to, I guess, people who are less aware, it stresses them literally to the max. A lot of people can't handle it, and their minds are like shutting off in the process, and it becomes this dichotomy where it's kind of like a war of ego and who's right and wrong. It's a little dark. Is it? Sorry, I didn't look at this too much. Let me see if I can zoom it in on my floor desk. And the clarity's out. Well, that's why. I don't know if I can change the resolution without ending the recording. Let's find out. Apparently not. Oh no, I did. That's amazing. What will they think up next? Sorry, I'm babbling. Okay. That's good enough for now. So look, that ergonomics floor desk goes wherever your feet go. That says dichotomy, war equals ego, less aware, exposed to that information that these researchers are piling in equals stress. And I'm gonna forget what any of this else says. I have a shoulder injury. Last time I was doing this, I was jumping back and forth between sides, and then just like wiping the boards down. It was big boards and shit. Oh my gosh, after that, I got a lot out, or 50% of it got deleted. I'm done, go to upload, and it's like jarbled. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, everybody's gone through that. And a lot of it, and that actually almost put me into like a little discouragement. And then that I activated an injury, and so I was basically immobilized for about a month. It was like a few weeks straight, and then I was in agonizing pain on and off for like a month or two, and then I had to be careful a little bit around that period to not set it off again. And more or less, it's kind of like locking in again, but I mean it's going away, or my muscles are working again. But it's still there, so it's like it's not going to magically go away. But this, I like doing that, especially the bigger one. The last time I was doing it, it like broke my shoulder. Anyway, so this is like a low awareness zone, and that's basically the intended location for people, and ultimately humans are supposed to be. It's like a basement, a cage. So this is supposed to be something like the middle class in this world theory, but it's actually I mean, I don't even know what to call it at this point. It's not even real. It's basically pseudological. Everything that you see happening where humans are allowed up into the system and they dance and there's a flower, that's an illusion. They make space. They can manufacture time. So imagine what they've been doing. The only reason they're here now and it's being exposed is because they ran out of energy because they did it so much. Like, just put that in your head. Like, what did they do? And they can do that. And the only reason we know is because it happened so much that they have no other option. That it's like, oh shit, now what? That's who's in control. It would be like if your balls were in control of your brain or something. Doesn't make sense. or really your butt, or the bacteria in your butt. Hint, hint. And so I'll get to that later, if you will, with all this projection. Basically, this world is clean cut. This is hell, but they're too preoccupied with hell to understand. And then this, the lawns and what happened to the nuclear family in that world, could have been based upon creationary principles of humanity and life, spiritual evolution, and that's it. And then what goes on with the body is under that. It's not like, well, then we're here with the body, so we also do this and that and the other and this. That's gonna get distracting. But in that sense, just here, yeah, go over here, do that, have fun over here, do this. The entertainment, the games, sports, certain aspects of politics, war, the food industry in certain aspects, the entertainment industry, education, blah blah. Shit doesn't work, obviously. Now I'm not just saying I wish it could be better. I'm letting you know from my experience and others that have similar experiences or have similar background. It's a fraudulent system. They're playing you. It doesn't. It's all the trillions of dollars, $10 trillion. All right, that didn't go into what you thought. It went into making mirrors and projection consciousness redirectors out of the arrangement of information itself. I'm not saying it's like a alien matrix down the street. They're mimicking certain things, certain aspects of nature and the illusion of consciousness itself to create a fold in memory and space-time. And the world we think is this big expanse Earth is just a little slice in that they basically let us run around in like chickens. And then that's really that, where it's fucking hell. That aspect of it is actually just plugged in. It's an add-on. In Firefox, install the add-on for the Call of Duty game where you go walk around and push a shopping cart and fucking whatever. That's that. It's invented for the purpose of not realizing that they take from our consciousness the best aspects of the brain waves, the high amplitude emotion, pleasure, ecstasy, even rage in certain ways, and they demodulate it, or not. And they leave everybody the lower, and then the belief that this can become that's the projection system. It's never done, never happened, can't happen. And I don't know how long it's been since we were in a place where that was conceivable. I'm not saying it's been one distance of time or another, or that a place like that never existed. The truth is, the place where you can sprout like a seed and grow upwards and then branch off to so many things that you could if you were in a secret billionaire club, but fucked up and just did a bunch of naughty shit. It's not that, but if you in the world that's probably closer to a higher, instead of heaven, a higher dimensional humanity. The fact that we're using the world tech systems that these people are using for managing consciousness, for rearranging events, or the projection of events through those systems of consciousness, and our society probably used that to, or potentially did, to do everything that you would do if you were in the body and you're observing the principles of the spirit and using that to support the body. And you're not using the body to support, well, in a way it's both, but you're not using, you could say you're using the body to support that, but you're not using that to support the body and chase some type of high or pleasure. If anything, you are observing that, and as a result, naturally, that supports the body. And in that sense, you use the body to ensure you don't go off the path, and you can't no longer pay attention to that and support that, and be supported by it. And so, in that sense, it would be like just like this. This is a future tech world where anything is possible, and that's it. You would never know it. But the way they cut out the stuff they don't want and just make this cascade of like orgasmic pleasure, which completely blinds the soul on the other side. It can't see. We would have that to the point where we'd have just enough to see around us, because that stuff is like light for the soul. Just enough to see around us, And then wherever there's an overage, it would go into these other places where it's dark, and it would help enlighten them, if you will. In that case, you get this. Or if it's dark and they slowly trend upwards to super bright, it looks, like that, or like a pyramid, or a, whatever. And so then it would be radial, but in the same sense, upward trend. But in more so, it becomes radial, because we have this upward trend, and again, that was a system designed, and we're all supposed to vibrate. And so it's kind of like a flash system. Nothing, it's not showing up. Oh, it's kind of like a system where you're matching. They all have two. You're matching. So all of this is one system. Yeah, I would wipe it if I wouldn't hurt. I figured I could just use my left hand. That was weaker now. I'm like, I worked that out, so I can use it, but I gotta find the erasers. And then I gotta get like the water kind or something, because you use the eraser, it makes that dry ink dust that if whatever it touches stains. So it's like, I don't know. I guess just this, but I don't want the spritzer to be all weird. Anyway, so you think it's like this. You think it's like a graduating pyramid prism. And so maybe there's another one that goes down, and then I don't know. And so it's almost like these are marbles, and they can vibrate at any frequency, and as they do, they change shape and get more or less buoyant. And so what we think we're like in a ball pit, climbing over this other layer of the ball pit and these other balls, climbing over them until we get to the very top, you're actually just in these series of balls vibrating a certain level. Then you migrate energetically, frequency based, your consciousness does, to that one, and so on. And so this is like a wave in the ocean where you have all the molecules, but as the wave goes on, the molecules go up, but then they go down and they stay there. They don't move. That water over here doesn't get picked, unless it gets picked up like the crashing wave. But the swells, it doesn't actually end up anywhere else. The water stays in the same space, the molecules, and the current takes it. But the swelling itself, that wave moving forward, it's literally energy, and the molecules themselves are staying in the same place. So that's kind of my understanding of that system. It's like you quantum entangle at whatever frequency you're looking at. And so then in that system, that's basically very simple. It's not really happening, it's energy, and your mind is running through it. But gone wrong, with absolute disconnect, it's like a battle. It's like a lion eating a gazelle. It's, bacteria trying to take over a body. Now, imagine if there was, again, the same thing. I can't really see it now, but on the other side, and the other, and so far. Again, these are all symbols that you could recognize. Maybe this is why it's invisible, because you have to read between the scribbles to see the we would have a complete system, whereas there is no loss. You go here, okay, well, you're in this one. It's like a central gravity system. Instead, the round Earth is central gravitation for central intelligence for whatever the system is that's making intelligence by vibrating molecules together to figure out what's going on. It puts things in the right place according to their size and shape and structure. It's like an organizational system. But in that sense, losing from here just means you gain up here. You just end up in another folded over domain. There is no actual, we're at the top. Sorry, I did it backwards. We're at the top. Well, that looks bad. But we're at the top, and then, that's just the bottom, and nobody cares. It's death and so on. That was a very bad drawing. Don't show anybody. Will this erase? No. There's some paper towels. Pause. good old background noise. Oh my gosh. I'll put in just draw on my face. Okay, this works for now until the poisonous spray. It's nice and etiquette. Yeah, so the top down with just one goal, and then kind of one base, if you will, with one loss and one benefit, is an illusion. It's, you know, radial. It's just somebody blocked out that much of the pie that we can only see that, and that would be, say, how could this be said? So you have, it's just like you have graphs that map out what this is, you know, and it's literally as if it's something's rotating. Oh, I did that wrong. Around that, and you put them together and you get kind of like a ball with a given degree of rotation. Not really, but what is it, the line circle and visual mapping. And so if there's a certain percentage of the frequencies, basically like a pie chart, that are basically certain aspects that represent, they lead into the other areas, a system can be kind of projected onto that, which cancels out those areas, and it's all in one, like a big holographic pie chart. And the resulting world we see is literally something that, if there's 7 worlds, we might only see one of them, depending on, well, apparently, you know, if there's 7 worlds, you do that to people, they forget about that one. There's 6, and then, or you do it again, there's 5, you do it again, you get to maybe 3 or 4, but you do it after that, there's no way to understand how to get back to that, what it could be. So it's like we're at the absolute limitation of possible realities. And sorry. And so these worlds slowly blocked out one by one, and you have the line circle thing there, but then it's that folded all into itself in like a wire. That's how you coil it. You end up with a circle with a certain degree of turns and kinks and total. It's like the area of the angles. I can't think of the word for fractals. You count up the sides of a fractal. You get like a ratio, and so then that's one holographic projection of our consciousness. You cross-reference that like a signal jammer that's being put out for every other place, and it's overlaying or completely jarbling certain frequencies that are required to understand, say, these extra worlds. You block out one world, and then, you know, if nobody knows it and you play it on, you can keep going, and then maybe you run out to a bare minimum, and we might be at that bare minimum of 3 worlds, and so these 3 worlds rotate, and we only see one at a time because we're phasing in between them. And in that sense, that's the minimum you can get, but it has to be compartmentalized. We can only see one at a time, and any other time, basically 2/3 are being hidden, or maybe they're off partying or whatever, but either way, our soul overall collectively doesn't have access to the large potential of our consciousness because certain aspects of the peak functions are pretty much edited out. How do they do that? You know, dreams, chemicals, some type of, you know, some type of, the radio telemetry is pretty much doing it, and seeding the kind of informal projection of what the world is supposed to be that goes against the human spirit's first and I don't know where I had that concept, the human spirit's first and true potential, wherever that was. If anything that goes against the true potential, eventually that adds up, and overall, after thousands of years, there's this much of the world of the true potential that's not being seen here, but then Ultimately, imagine they took portions of people's brains and memories, then reconstructed a world using the best aspects of it that only they have access to. Another way to look at it and view it as these weird universal simulation games that have been played. And then maybe that split up and became certain other realities, which then rely on this one to function, but then in the way they're doing it, rely on the subjugation. Rely on the subjugation of this one. Great. Alright. Nope, it's still crazy. And so then, in that sense, you have basically it's like a pinwheel, but it's collapsed because this one, there's not enough energy to make that expansion. It's being drained out, and so it kind of like, it means worlds go dark. As this rotates, each world goes dark as they slip into it. That could have been the periods of darkness, or darkness, or things people call, or certain catastrophes or energy changes. Whereas it's literally like a clock, and they used up so much energy in these alternate systems that 12 o'clock is always dark. Thus we have midnight, whereas no other worlds ever knew what that meant. That we're 11 o'clock, we're an hour from midnight, 2 minutes from midnight. Well, what does that mean? We have all the resources, it's infinite resources. What are you talking about? Somebody would have to shut off that system, and so the question is, do they really need to do that to get what they want, or is doing that what they want? And it's a lot of what we have to kind of determine here and figure out. That's why it's on an angle, because the camera's on an angle. Alright. Thank you. Camera, floor desk, in action.